Hello, everyone. So, I hope today's message is going to be inspiring. This message today is especially for those of us who are single. And if you may be wondering, why are you still single? Okay. And others may ask you all the time, why are you single? Or they may just assume that you're not single and that you're married or in a relationship. But we live in a world surrounded by millions of people, yet why is it so hard to find the right person to spend our lives with? And then when we think we found the one, it just falls apart. The relationships just don't last because people are so quick to just move on to the next person. And that's where we find ourselves today, with people who just don't want to put in the work that is required to maintain a relationship. Or they might be with you and then they're still looking over their shoulder to see if maybe they're missing something else. Okay, so that's another big issue as well. Or there are those who blame the woman and say that there must be something wrong with us. But we're not all sitting home with 10 cats, eating junk food, binging on Netflix, and getting fat. Okay? Neither are we walking around bitter and angry at the world or an ex who did us wrong. So I think it's important to say that, because I think a lot of times there's always an excuse why a man is single, but when it comes to a woman, we're single because we must be doing something wrong, or we're single because we must be fat or sitting at home eating or bitter and angry, when that's actually not true. And people assume if you're single as a woman that, yeah, what's wrong with her? She must have something wrong. There must be a mental problem. She must be a really angry person, or whatever they come up with. And it's really sad when people label and stereotype you that way when it's not even true. When actually many of us are attractive, smart, emotionally and socially intelligent, and hold ourselves and those around us to a higher standard. And we work hard to maintain that. So never apologize for having high standards, morals, and values, okay? It may take longer to be chosen, but the right man will find you, okay? The wrong ones assume you lack confidence and that you're looking to them for validation. And that's really sad when someone thinks like that, but we don't need validation from the wrong person. And we don't chase applause. We also don't lower our standards to meet someone else's shallow standards. Some of us are single because we keep encountering men who refuse to raise their standards to meet us where we are, okay? So what they'll do is they'll be like, okay, well, they're so used to dating a string of women who are just easy. And I mean just easy in terms of whatever they want, they just go with the flow. And then when they meet somebody like us who actually have standards or high standards, we're seen as high maintenance when we're just being a woman of excellence who take care of ourselves. We're labeled difficult when we fight for what we believe in and hold to our morals and standards, which in today's world may be seen as outdated or archaic. Okay, we're labeled boring or uninteresting when we don't clap, celebrate, and sit at tables that we really don't belong at in the first place and that don't suit us. And we're attacked by those whose breadcrumbs no longer fill us because they don't want to see us as the clear choice, but want to group us in with other women who just go with the flow and accept each other in his life because it's his world and we just live in it. And because we live in a broken world, we're measured up against women whose views are secular and match his own. And that's an even harder one to swallow when you're trying to be like this good person, and we live in a world, but we don't want to be of the world, meaning we don't want to do everything that the world does or everything that everybody else does, just so that we can fit in. Because even if you do fit in, that doesn't mean you're going to be chosen in the long run. So it's better to hold to your standards and your identity and your morals and your values until the right one comes along and appreciates those things about you. Okay? And little do these guys know that we're not prudes, we're not boring by any means, and we know how to be both an alluring and attractive woman while maintaining our love of Jesus Christ. Because by loving him first, we've learned how to truly love someone else without the drama and without the entrapment. Okay, we don't need to trap a man. We don't need to, just keep drama going all the time when we're with somebody, because all of that is truly unnecessary. If you have a real love of Jesus Christ and you know in your heart how Jesus loves you and how he's chosen us, you will never have to fight for someone's attention, okay? Because your love will just shine forth, okay? And you won't have to do all these theatrics or tricks or whatever to try and keep a man. None of that will be necessary. Now, if you've read the book of Ruth in the Old Testament, you will discover how she lost her husband, and she remained single for quite some time. She actually went off with her mother-in-law, and they actually moved to another town. And when she got there, she eventually met somebody named Boaz, okay, who was both handsome and kind and wealthy and generous. And Boaz was single. So he obviously and probably had a lot of women after him, but he, for whatever reason, hadn't settled down and hadn't gotten married yet until he met Ruth, okay? And then he decided that he wanted to make Ruth his wife. So she stayed single, she stayed faithful, she stayed close to God, she wasn't running the streets, she wasn't doing any of those things trying to capture a man's attention. She wasn't competing with the other women when she went to work in Boaz's field. She wasn't doing that. She was just being herself, living her life, and just being the person that God created her to be. And that is what caught his attention. So each one of us deserves to meet our Boaz. His faith may not be where ours is, but you know what? That's okay. Sometimes women will say, "Oh, I don't want to date a man unless his faith is up there with mine." Okay, well, that's not really what God has called to us. And some of you may get angry at me saying that, but you're not going to always be equally yoked in terms of where somebody is in their walk in their faith. Okay, they might be a baby Christian, or they may not know anything about God or anything about Jesus, but your character and how you portray yourself and how you carry yourself will shine forth on its own. And they will just want to know, what is it about this woman that makes her so different from all these other women? And it makes a huge difference. There was a time where one time I dated this doctor when I lived in South Florida. Okay, this guy was very much sought after. Okay, and I was on a dating site at the time. I don't remember which one it was, but he reached out to me, and we started talking. We went out on a date, and he took me to this really nice restaurant in Boca Raton, and we started talking and got to really know each other. And, he told me, as a doctor, everything with them was based on science. So not that he was he wasn't an atheist, but he didn't know what he believed. So he was more like an agnostic. Okay. He didn't know what he believed, and he'd never met anybody that talked to him about God or about their faith or why they had this faith in Jesus. And so that was one of the things that I told him. I says, well, I am a Christian, and, I believe in Jesus and, things like that. But I never, never, never shoved that down his throat. I never tried to sway him in my direction. I was never judging him. I was never trying to correct him. None of that. None of that. And he ended up saying to me one day, he said, you have made me want to believe in God because you're not trying to shove it down my throat. You're not trying to force me to come your way. You're just naturally being yourself. And I love that about you. And that was what was so prophetic for me, because when you're trying to force somebody to be a certain way, it's never going to work. And sometimes God will bring somebody into your life whose faith isn't as strong, because guess what? Maybe you're the only person they're ever going to meet who can talk to them about Jesus if they want to learn about him, or can hear you just in conversations with other people talking about your love of Jesus, or just in your everyday life, or things that you're doing or things that you're saying that just come naturally to you, not an act that you're putting on or anything like that, but anything that comes naturally to you that you can attribute to being a Christian or being one with God. Okay. And he will naturally see all that. And then they naturally want to know, what is it about her that makes her so different and stands out from all these other women? Okay. Because truly with a guy, you want to be the clear choice. Okay. And if he has a doubt in his head that you are, then that he's not the right one for you. He isn't the right one for you, because a man who truly wants to be with you is going to know after spending time with you. Of course, if he hasn't spent any time with you, then that's neither here nor there. I mean, there's no comparison, because he hasn't spent any time with you. He's just guessing at that point. So I'm talking about somebody who's actually spent time with you, has been with you, has gone out on dates with you. You're in each other's company quite often enough for him to figure out and know who you are and what you are. Okay. And each one of us deserves to meet our Boaz. Okay. It's not always about just the guy choosing us. We also deserve, as women of God, to meet our Boaz. Okay. And to have choices as well. Now, like I said, his faith may not be where ours is, but don't count him out because of that. Okay. Don't count him out because his faith may not be where yours is. Okay. Give him a chance and see where he's at in his walk. And if he's not there, he will eventually just catch up with you naturally. If if he loves you, he will just catch up to you naturally. And he will know that he's found somebody that's quite different, like I said, from all the rest of the women that he's probably dated. So don't you dare settle, okay? Don't lower your standards or make excuses for somebody who isn't a Boaz. You don't want to settle for lazy ass, dumb ass, cheap ass, narcissist ass, ghost ass, slow ass, broke ass, or coward ass. Okay, you don't want to settle for those. So keep your standards high. You want a man who's loyal, a protector, a man of integrity, and basically just truly good at heart. So, of course, I want to leave you with this Bible verse. So if you're ever out and about and you finally meet somebody and you start dating him, don't lose your head, of course. Don't get so heady and so into the relationship that you forget whose you are and who you are and what your identity is. And then if you're questioning, does this man, as time goes on, does this man really love me? I want you to remember this verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4-7. And I'm going to read this to you. So some of you may already know these verses because they're pretty popular, but it says that love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. Love never loses faith. It's always hopeful and endures through every circumstance. So I think that those verses are strong indicators of a person's love, okay? You will never have to wonder how someone really feels about you if they can be vulnerable and transparent, strong yet kind, protective yet trusting, and high profile yet humble. And above all, loves you unconditionally, flaws and all. So I hope this message encouraged you if you're single. And remember, until you meet the right one, you will always, always be chosen by God. Have a wonderful day.